Hey, football fans! Today, we're diving into some of the biggest football stadiums in England that are so close to each other you could practically wave at your rivals from across the street. In today's video, we'll count down the top 20 stadiums from the most extensive distance to the closest. So, without further ado, let's kick off with the farthest apart of the bunch. 20. Bloomfield Road to Deepdale. Kicking things off, we've got Bloomfield Road, home to Blackpool FC, and Deepdale, the iconic ground of Preston North End FC. These two clubs have a rivalry known as the West Lancashire Derby, and their stadiums are just 27.3 kilometers apart. Even though these two stadiums are the farthest apart on our list, the rivalry between their teams is anything but distant. 19. Ewood Park to Deepdale. Next, we've got another Lancashire battle, Ewood Park and Deepdale. At just 19 kilometers apart, Blackburn Rovers Ewood Park has a capacity of 31,367, making it a fortress for the 1995 Premier League champions. Besides, Deepdale's history continues to shine in this matchup. Still, the intensity of the games between these two sides gets fans talking. 18. Stadium of Light to St. James Park. One of the fiercest rivalries in England is the Tyne-Wear Derby, pitting Sunderland AFC against Newcastle United. The Stadium of Light, Sunderland's home, and St. James Park, Newcastle's fortress, are just 19 kilometers apart. While the distance between these two stadiums may be short, the intensity of the Tyne-Wear Derby is enormous. 17. Turf Moor to Ewood Park. Moving on to another Lancashire rivalry, Turf Moor and Ewood Park are separated by just 18 kilometers. This is the fierce East Lancashire Derby, where Burnley and Blackburn Rovers go head-to-head. Ewood Park has a larger capacity and perhaps a bit more recent success. Still, Burnley versus Blackburn is always a tight contest. 16. Nethermoor Park to Elland Road. Heading to West Yorkshire, we find Nethermoor Park and Elland Road, separated by just 16 kilometers. Nethermoor Park, with its modest capacity of 4,000, is the home of non-league side Guiseley AFC. Though it's much smaller than Leeds United's massive Elland Road, which holds 37,792 fans, the proximity of these two grounds highlights the football culture embedded in this region. 15. Boundary Park to Etihad Stadium. Now, let's hop over to Greater Manchester, where Boundary Park and Etihad Stadium are separated by just 13 kilometers. Boundary Park, with a capacity of 13,513, is the home of Oldham Athletic. While Oldham may no longer compete at the same level as City, the proximity of these two clubs shows how closely intertwined football is in Greater Manchester. 14. Crown Ground to Turf Moor. At just 12 kilometers apart, Crown Ground and Turf Moor form another Lancashire football pairing. Crown Ground, home of Accrington Stanley, has a modest capacity of 5,450. It's a small but beloved ground, representing the town's proud football heritage. Meanwhile, Turf Moor looms larger both in capacity and stature. Still, this proximity shows just how close these Lancashire clubs are. 13. Plough Lane to Selhurst Park. Returning to London, Plough Lane and Selhurst Park are just 9 kilometers apart. Plough Lane, the home of AFC Wimbledon, has a capacity of 9,300 and is a modern ground completed in 2020. Meanwhile, Selhurst Park has a larger capacity of 25,486 and is known for its raucous atmosphere. 12. The Den to London Stadium. The Den is home to Millwall FC and London Stadium, where West Ham United currently resides. Despite being only 9 kilometers apart, these clubs have vastly different histories and atmospheres. The Den, with a capacity of 20,146, is renowned for its intense atmosphere. In stark contrast, the London Stadium, built for the 2012 Olympic Games, has a capacity 60,000. 11. Brentford Community Stadium to Stamford Bridge. Brentford Community Stadium, the new home of Brentford FC, and Stamford Bridge, the iconic ground of Chelsea FC, are just 8 kilometers apart. Even though only 8 kilometers separate these two grounds, the history and scale of the clubs are miles apart. Chelsea's deep pockets and star-studded lineup sharply contrast with Brentford's more community-focused, data-driven approach. 10. London Stadium to Emirates Stadium. These two giants of London football are just 8 kilometers apart, but their stories couldn't be more different. While West Ham United has been adjusting to their new home, Emirates Stadium, with a capacity of 60,704, has been Arsenal's home since 2006. These two stadiums are practically neighbors by London standards, but Arsenal has historically been in a different league. 9. Loftus Road to Stamford Bridge. Another West London pairing, Loftus Road and Stamford Bridge, are only 7 kilometers apart. These two clubs have shared contrasting fortunes over the years. QPR historically bounced between divisions, while Chelsea established themselves among Europe's elite. The proximity of these two stadiums adds an extra edge when these clubs meet. 8. Emirates Stadium to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Arsenal's Emirates Stadium and Tottenham Hotspur Stadium are separated by just 7 kilometers, but the rivalry between these clubs is enormous. Tottenham's Tottenham Hotspur Stadium opened in 2019 and is considered one of the most technologically advanced stadiums in the world, boasting a retractable pitch and a capacity of 62,850. These two stadiums are symbolic of their club's fierce competition. 7. Memorial Ground to Ashton Gate. Heading to Bristol, the distance between Memorial Ground, home to Bristol Rovers FC, and Ashton Gate, home to Bristol City FC, is just 7 kilometers. This rivalry is known as the Bristol Derby. Meanwhile, the contrast between these two grounds is striking, but their proximity only adds to the intensity of the rivalry. 6. The Hawthorns to Villa Park. We find the Hawthorns and Villa Park just 6 kilometers apart in the West Midlands. The Hawthorns, home to West Bromwich Albion, has a capacity of 26,850 and is known for its passionate fan base and intimate feel. On the other hand, Villa Park is one of England's grandest stadiums, with a capacity of 42,785. 5. Etihad Stadium to Old Trafford. Etihad Stadium, home to Manchester City, and Old Trafford, the legendary home of Manchester United, are just 6 kilometers apart. Etihad Stadium, with its capacity of 53,400, has been the stage for City's dominance in recent years. Meanwhile, Old Trafford, with a massive capacity of 74,310, is known as the Theatre of Dreams and is the largest club stadium in the UK. 4. Hillsborough to Bramall Lane. Hillsborough and Bramall Lane are separated by just 5 kilometers. Hillsborough, home to Sheffield Wednesday, has a capacity of 39,732 and is one of the most iconic stadiums in English football. Bramall Lane, home to Sheffield United, is equally historic, with a capacity 32,050. It's the world's oldest major football stadium still in use, having opened in 1855. 3. St Andrews to Villa Park. In Birmingham, just 4 kilometers separate St Andrews and Villa Park. St Andrews, with a capacity of 29,409, is home to Birmingham City FC. Villa Park, on the other hand, is a much larger area. The rivalry between Birmingham City and Aston Villa is among the most intense in English football, with both sets of fans fiercely proud of their clubs. 2. Stamford Bridge to Craven Cottage. Stamford Bridge and Craven Cottage are just 3 kilometers apart, making this one of the closest rivalries in London. Craven Cottage is much smaller, has a capacity of 25,700, and is the home of Fulham FC. Built in 1896, it's one of the most picturesque stadiums in England, sitting right on the banks of the River Thames. 1. Anfield to Goodison Park. These two historic stadiums are just 1 kilometer apart, separated by Stanley Park in Liverpool. Though Everton is set to move to a new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock, the proximity between these clubs will always be a defining feature of the Merseyside Derby. The rivalry between Liverpool and Everton is among the most famous in world football. And there you have it, 20 of the closest football stadiums in England. From London to Liverpool, these grounds aren't just close in distance, but also close in footballing history and rivalry. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more football content.